Greetings, jazz vinyl lovers. Ken McCall back again to talk to you today about crime jazz, which used to be ubiquitous in the 50s and 60s, and even my favorite stuff up through the mid-70s. I don't know if you can hear what's playing in the background, but this is the soundtrack, the original motion picture soundtrack album to Lady in Cement by Hugo Montenegro, who made a lot of really cheesy records, but this is a really cool record. And I think Lady in Cement may have been a Frank Sinatra picture. Anyway, just these are pretty easy to find. You have to dig to find soundtrack albums, but there's a lot of great jazz on these things, and it's not limited to the U.S. The great Pierre Umiliani did many Italian soundtracks back in the 60s and the 70s. This is a great Klaus Kinski movie, which I've never actually seen the movie, but you know, the Italian, the French, the European soundtracks are a little derivative of American music of the time, but still a lot of really great stuff. From the 50s, early 60s, Mickey Spillane is Mike Hammer. Music composed by Dave Kahn and Merlin Leonard. I have no idea who they are. Arranged and conducted by Skip Martin. It's pretty mean, right? I think that's Sterling Hayden, isn't it? Anyway, just one of many things. It looks like he's looking at the Brooklyn Bridge, probably. A lot of bad crime in a bad New York City back in the day. There are many John Barry soundtracks. One of them being this one, Deadfall, which I believe also starred Christopher Reeve. Michael Caine as Brian Forbes in Deadfall. Great cover, right? The Brits did a lot of great stuff, have their own style. This is not necessarily crime jazz, but it sort of falls under the same moniker, if you can see that. Gregory Peck, Mirage, music conducted by Quincy Jones, so it is pretty friggin' jazzy. I've heard some of Quincy Jones soundtracks. I wasn't that crazy about them. I think The Pawnbroker's supposed to be pretty good. There's one. Another classic John Barry title, The Ipcris File. You know, all of these records sound like this. There are some malevolent sounds, there's high-speed chasing sounds. One of the weirdest soundtracks that I don't actually have, and I've never seen it on vinyl, it's the soundtrack to the French Connection by Don Ellis. Which has a lot of very unusual, eerie trumpet sounds. And that's a cool one. This came out in the 90s, soundtracks. This is a great collection of stuff from, I'll just read it off to you. Henry Mancini, The Party, Mongo Santa Maria. This is not all jazz. Oh my God, Kenyon Hopkins. They do the theme from Bullet here, Lalo Schifrin. There's a lot of great Lalo Schifrin soundtracks, obviously. This used to be really common, was really popular for a long time. Impact. Mostly TV soundtracks. Themes from Peter Gunn, Rawhide, Waterfront, Sea Hunt, Perry Mason, The Naked City, Highway Patrol. So, you know, The Naked City obviously qualifies. Perry Mason, I suppose. Back when there were lots of orchestras and a lot of musicians, you know, like Shelly Manne making a lot of money doing this stuff. The great soundtrack by, I'm not sure, Bernard Herrmann, yeah, to North by Northwest. Or Seeking Out. You know, the Hitchcock soundtracks to me are just as great as the Nino Rota soundtracks for Fellini's movies, which I also really love. And here's a strange one. You know, back in the day, this is on Mainstream, you'd find a bunch of no-name artists covering popular tunes. You know, and here they're doing, you know, Goldfinger, Murder Inc., Spellbound, The Pink Panther, The Third Man Theme, The 10th Victim, Harper being a Paul Newman TV show. I think it was a TV show. Anyway, you can see that. It's kind of cool. The detectives and agents of great suspense and motion picture thrillers. Now to me, when I first look at that, it looks like a vacuum cleaner. But I think it's a microphone. Okay. And of course, Anatomy of a Murder by Duke Ellington. Worth searching out. Just fantastic example of Duke Ellington's artistry. This is more of a sci-fi thing by the Peter Thomas Sound Orchestra. This is an original Fontana pressing. The original may actually be German. Oh, it is German. Ooh. Famously sampled for some pulp songs way back in the day, but really far out, freaky stuff. And then my favorite crime jazz soundtrack of all time, 3 Days of the Condor by Dave Grusin. This is just Harvey Mason, Dave Grusin. It's the peak of 70s crime jazz. I imagine this was probably done in L.A. You know, a great movie I've watched a million times because it sort of shows 70s New York. Well, it does show 70s New York, including the World Trade Center. And this just has everything to me a crime jazz soundtrack should have. A lot of dark, eerie passages, a lot of really cool, hip, funky grooves that are not like go-go beat grooves. They're just really cool, funky grooves, as Harvey Mason can groove. There's another one that from this period, The Spook Who Sat by the Door, a Herbie Hancock sort of soundtrack. And Herbie also did Blow Up, I believe. So anyway, that's just a little overview. We have Jerry Falwell here wishing you well. Thanks for checking in again. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your crime jazz suggestions that I don't have. And I couldn't find my most favorite ones, Johnny Staccato. John Cassavetes as Johnny Staccato, which coincidentally, the opening scene was shot in the next block over at the Princeton Playhouse. But anyway, have a great day. Thanks for checking in. I appreciate your support. Bye-bye.